Have you ever found yourself playing a role you didn't audition for? One you didn't ask for but somehow you always carried? Maybe it was being the responsible one, or the person who everyone else looked to when things got difficult. Whether or not you're the oldest sibling, many of us know what it feels like to carry early expectations and labels before we even knew how to speak up for ourselves. Now imagine that from birth. From the moment an oldest child is born into the world, they not only inherit the title of being the eldest sibling, but also the expectations and pressures that come with it. The pressure to lead, to be strong, to know better even when we don't. And while this role isn't written down, it is deeply understood. It often looks like sacrificing your own childhood in order to protect your younger siblings. But here's the interesting part. These early expectations and labels don't disappear when you grow up. Instead, they shape how we navigate life. This isn't just about sibling dynamics. It's about how these early roles and expectations shape us and our futures. Whether or not you're the oldest child, the baby of the family, or someone who grew up navigating expectations from a teacher or coach, this idea touches everyone. While being the oldest sibling often comes with these early responsibilities and expectations that shape our identity, personal growth, and our relationships, it's important to remember that these labels don't have to define us. We can challenge the boundaries of the labels that have been assigned to us and embrace the traits that might not necessarily align with our role, and in doing so, become a more authentic version of ourselves. I was often regarded as the go-to helper or the built-in babysitter, and the one who was expected to know better even when I didn't. And truthfully, there was many moments where I secretly wished I wasn't the older sister. I wished I had a sister who could go first and could reassure me that everything would be okay. I still remember the night before my first day of kindergarten. I was terrified, nervous that I would make new friends, the new environment, and the new faces I would meet. And as I laid in bed that night, I remember thinking, I wish I had an older sister. Someone who could make the mistakes before I did and reassure me that I would be okay. However, this wish didn't come true. So the next morning, I had to show up to school and put on a brave face, knowing that one day my little sister would be watching me. It was instances like these that made me wish I had an older sister. It was instances like these that made me wish I was an older sister. And I soon realized that not every characteristic of mine that I possess aligned with the role I was given. It's even mentioned in the website titled Very Well Mine that while traits like a tendency to be perfectionistic, ambitious, and stubborn are often ascribed to eldest siblings, these traits don't always accurately describe them, and many firstborn struggle under the weight and expectations placed upon them. I also found in a New York Times article talking about eldest siblings how firstborn children are often described as reliable and high achieving. So while examples like these were expected to describe who I was, they didn't necessarily align to who I was as a person. So maybe you weren't the oldest sibling, or didn't have any to begin with. But I want you to think for a moment. What roles and labels have been placed upon you? Now think, do you think these labels are a reflection of who you are as a person through and through? Most likely, we tend to be a mixture of the labels that have been placed upon us, not just one of them. While some of these labels do hold some truth, they aren't set in stone and shouldn't define us. You might refer to yourself as a type A person, however, still checking off some boxes in the type B column. Or you might refer to yourself as a high achiever, yet still leave things to do to the last minute. It's important to remember that just because you were assigned a label at birth, later in life, doesn't mean that you necessarily have to conform to it. Branching out, forming your own identity with a mixture of traits is something that should be more accepted and normalized. It's okay to live in the middle sometimes. You don't have to commit yourself to one version of yourself just because that's what others might have expected of you. We're often obsessed with categorizing ourselves and labeling ourselves in order to make sense of who we are as a person. It's easy to find comfort in a label that feels definitive when our lives feel like chaos and contradictory. I would say embrace that chaos and contradictions because that's where you'll truly find yourself. I'm sure many of us remember the assignments we were given all throughout our school years. The ones with questions that read, "What's one word that best describes you?" Or, "I see myself as a blank type of person." And while we didn't know it, it was assignments like these that trained our brains to believe we can only be one thing. We've been conditioned to ascribe ourselves to specific labels like personality quizzes, all about me assignments, or even tests that claim to predict what career we'll go into solely based off the few characteristics we provided. I found a quote about personality assessments stating, "Personality assessments overemphasize some aspects of people's personalities while underemphasizing, misplacing, or omit other aspects. Personality assessments don't provide an accurate depiction of a part of a person's personality. They provide a distorted, misleading version of the whole picture." I found this quote from the Constantin article. People have been accustomed to placing roles on themselves in order to avoid standing out. However, sometimes these labels start to feel more as a crutch rather than holding any truth. Just because these labels might describe one aspect of yourself doesn't mean they define you as a whole. The turning point came for me when I stopped trying to place myself into the mold of what the oldest sibling should be, and rather embrace the parts of myself that didn't align with this. I wasn't always the bold leader or the outspoken protector. For a long time, I thought that I was failing at my role. However, I've come to realize that there's no one right way to fulfill it. And this realization applies far beyond family dynamics. We are all more than the labels we have been given. Life isn't a personality quiz, and it's a work in progress that's ever evolving and constantly changing. When we allow ourselves to live in the space of in-betweenness, to own both of our contradictions and consistencies, we become a fuller version of ourselves. You can be a nurturing person but still need your own space, or a responsible person but not always the loudest one in the room. What is freeing is knowing that you don't have to pick just one of these labels and conform to it. You can evolve, and you can borrow traits from different people and things in your life in order to form an identity that is unique to your own. The more I leaned into the parts of myself that didn't align to the label of my birth order, the more confident and capable I became. This mindset applies in every aspect of our lives, not just in families, at work, in our relationships, and at school. When we stop boxing ourselves into specific roles and we allow ourselves more room to grow. And more importantly, we give others permission to do the same. Imagine how much stronger communities would be if we celebrated this sort of complexity instead of trying to simply fit everyone into one specific category. For me, being the oldest sibling trained me to take initiative, even when I didn't feel brave. It taught me how to be reliable, how to think of others, and how to stay calm in situations that felt overwhelming. As much as I resented this responsibility as a kid, I now know as it shaped me into the person I am today. I realized that I'm not just the oldest sibling, I'm many other things. I've taken on roles that weren't expected of me, and I've explored parts of myself that didn't fit my label. I was able to lead my siblings even though I wasn't the outspoken one. I would say, embrace the unknown because that's where you'll truly find yourself. It's important to realize that we are more than the labels we have been given. You will find meaning in yourself even when things might be scary or it looks like there's no end in sight. Being the eldest sibling has taught me many things about many things about the labels and the roles I have been given. However, being the oldest sibling even though being the oldest sibling was my starting point, it was not the whole story of who I am, and I now know that I can fit other labels that have been given to me.